Well, let's get more on that news from Australia with our business editor, Stephen Carroll, who joins me in the studio now. Stephen, what sort of state is the Australian media market in right now?
It's been a terrible couple of years for Australia's media industry, as in many parts of the world. The Public Interest Journalism Initiative has been tracking what's been happening to newsrooms around Australia over the past couple of years. It says that since January 2019, 120 newsrooms have closed in Australia, and that could be consolidation or titles being closed down. The tracking project says the decline is due to the triple whammy of effects: the impact of digital platforms on advertising, the coronavirus pandemic, and even the bushfires having an effect there as well. Media ownership generally in Australia is concentrated in a small number of large groups, and that's been an increasing trend over recent years as well. One of the biggest is Rupert Murdoch's News Corp. Now, that's a global company, so it's difficult to break down in their financial results exactly which elements pertain only to Australia. But if we look at two of the other big players, they both saw sharp falls in revenue last year. Seven West Media, which owns the 7 TV channels and newspapers like The West Australia, saw its revenues fall by 14%. Whereas Nine Entertainment, which owns titles including the Sydney Morning Herald, saw its revenues fall by 7%.
So just how much of that is to do with the impact of digital platforms on the ad market, Stephen?
So in drafting this code, which led to Facebook making this, taking this step of blocking content, news content on its platform, Australia's Competition Commission had looked at where digital advertising money goes in Australia, and they say that for every $100 spent on digital advertising in Australia, $53 goes to Google, $28 to Facebook, and the rest share $19 out of that $100, and that, of course, includes media companies. We know that digital advertising plays an increasingly important role in the ad market in general, and that's true for media companies too. Google has taken a different approach to Facebook. It's been signing deals with these media companies to get them to sign up to its news showcase product. That allows them to pay these companies for their content. The big deals has been signed in Australia in recent days. According to estimates by JP Morgan, Seven West's deal with Google could see them receive 40 to 70 million Australian dollars every year, whereas Nine's deal with Google is reported to be worth around $30 million a year. Obviously a very different approach being taken by Facebook and taking the decision instead to block news content from its platform in Australia.
So what sort of impact is this news from Australia having on the markets today?
It's a bit of a mixed effect. If we look at shares in Nine Entertainment, they're down by about 4% today, whereas shares in Seven West are up by almost 2%. So no major reactions on the company's share prices to this particular news from Facebook. Sydney's S&P ASX 200, their main share index, trading pretty flat a short time ago. More generally on the Asian markets, we've got falls in the Nikkei in Tokyo. The Shanghai Composite seeing some gains after it reopened after the Lunar New Year break.
Well, next, Stephen, to news of more job cuts and big losses at Air France KLM.
6,000 more jobs are to go in the coming years at the Franco-Dutch airline group as it counts the cost of the pandemic. That's on top of more than 8,000 jobs that were cut by the company in 2020, the equivalent of 10% of its global workforce. Air France KLM saw losses of €7.1 billion last year. That's after its passenger numbers fell by almost 4/5. The company says it's only operating at 40% capacity in the first 3 months of this year.
Well, Stephen, another company that had a very bad 2020 is Airbus.
Airbus saw net losses of €1.1 billion last year amidst what the company is describing as the most severe crisis that's faced the aerospace industry. Revenues at Airbus fell by almost a third, just under €50 billion last year. The number of planes that Airbus delivered to its customers also plunged by a third. The company says that it expects to produce a similar number in 2021. The recovery for the aerospace industry is likely to be slow and difficult. From Airbus headquarters in Toulouse, our correspondent Chris Bachman sent us this report.
While thousands of aircraft remain grounded across the globe, Airbus has seen pilot flight training on its simulators pick up worldwide recently. It's now at 70% of pre-pandemic levels.
We can see some signs of improvement, mainly in countries where the internal flights are doing a lot of activity by themselves, like China or India. Within Airbus, we expect to be back to the normal activity between 23 and 25.
In this factory, Airbus makes pylons that basically get attached to the wings. Now, production has fallen between 30 and 40% because of the pandemic. But nevertheless, the company has an order book for at least 7 to 8 years, and it believes that eventually airlines will need their planes, and therefore it has to have the workforce ready for when things do improve.
This is the Airbus owned and operated lycée in Toulouse, where pupils between the ages of 15 and 18 learn the mechanical and technical skills that before COVID provided a 95% chance of a full-time job on the assembly lines at the end. The school spends a lot of time reassuring the students that their newly acquired skills will be needed again soon.
I trust in the future. I trust also with the health context, with the vaccine. And probably the situation will be better, and we hope we could travel all around the world very soon.
Repairing the damage to the industry may take time. In the past year, between plane makers and suppliers, 30,000 jobs have been lost in the French aerospace sector. That's around 15% of the total workforce.
And finally from you, Stephen, despite the global economic crisis, property prices in Hong Kong have hit a new record.
A 5-bedroom apartment in the city is sold for the equivalent of record-breaking €156,000 per square metre. The property is in the sought-after mid-levels area of the city. The total price was €49 million, or the equivalent of in Hong Kong dollars. It's not an outright record, but the price per square metre certainly is. All of this in spite of Hong Kong's economy slumping by 6% last year. Unemployment in the city is at its highest level in 16 years at 6.6%. Obviously not a crisis affecting everyone in the same way if you can afford to pay that price for an apartment.
Extraordinary. Almost makes Parisian apartments look cheap.
Affordable, yes.
Stephen Carroll with a look through the day's top business stories. Thank you very much. Well, a clean-up